Well, hello, Grumps. How are you?
I'm doing good. We got to. We need to talk about that intro picture there. You got.
Yeah, you're much younger in that picture, aren't you?
Yeah. I'm
By
thinking,
at least, by at least I think a year.
man, you couldn't have picked a worse picture.
Well, that's the picture that's the picture we're going with until we can do better. So how have you been?
Okay. Thank goodness.
Yeah, I think it's been almost right at a year since we've done one of these.
Yeah, it has.
Uh, Life happens. I've been busy, and things I think are maybe going to settle down a little bit. So, but what have we got to talk about today?
Well,
That was the question.
we got maintenance schedules from various years of automobiles. Did you get yours rounded up?
I did. I
Okay.
did. I managed to find it and pull it up. Yeah, that's probably going to be in the latter half of the show. We're going to be talking about some slides that I put together. It's kind of a year-end review. We haven't been talking about this stuff on YouTube very much, but it's got to do with the electric vehicles, what's coming down the pike. What you got Toyota, you got Subaru, you got Mazda. They're getting in the game together. Now we've got Honda and Nissan with Mitsubishi talking about getting in bed together. So I thought we would take a few minutes and talk about that. And if you're ready, we'll go ahead and dive right on in and look at some of these slides I put together for us.
Ready when you are. Hit the button.
All right. Well, this comes from the Automotive Dive. It is a digital magazine that I subscribe to. Kind of helps keep finger on the pulse of what's going on. The Toyota, Subaru, and Mazda, they have jointly announced, and now I need to also make this aware that this is actually announced way back in May, and this comes from a year-end review. So we'll just talk about it real quick. Toyota, Subaru, and Mazda, they've jointly announced plans to develop new advanced gasoline engines that they're going to work better to integrate and work with hydraulic powertrains, work better with carbon neutral fuels, and let's see, the new engines are more compact than their existing versions. It's going to allow them to have more aerodynamic designs. And what do we got? The advanced engine technology will also support the development of the new hybrid vehicles as an interim step for reducing the carbon emissions. And the three automakers pursue their long-term electrification plans. We have said, you and I have often said that we're not ready for full electrification. We don't have the grid. We don't have the charge stations. And we were talking about that a little while ago about the electric charge stations. You had actually seen some in your local area where there hadn't been before.
Yeah, they just did about 2 or 3 blocks from where I live. Is a small shopping center, and they put some in there. But on this side of town, I haven't seen an abundance of them, on this side of town. But looks like they're starting to add them over here. So they've been on the other side,
Right. And
west side.
right, and I've seen some put in at some of our local shopping. We have an outlet mall that when they put it in, they put in charging stations. But what I found curious is we had recently had some new fuel stations built, and it doesn't look like they've made any provisions at all to add charging stations. Now, there may be something on architecturally that I don't know about where they can come. That's already it's there, and all they got to do is erect the charging stations. But they don't have any charging stations at these new gas stations, and it's the quick trips. And we had like 3 or 4 put in our area with no charging stations. So let's go ahead and read on to what Toyota's doing. Part of Toyota's engine technology. The automaker is developing new low displacement inline 4-cylinder engines based on 2 development concepts. Toyota aims to achieve greater efficiency pairing its engine with the electric powertrain. One benefit of this effort is that the new gasoline engine is made smaller, greater flexibility for the vehicle designers. Now, this next part I thought was pretty interesting. Mazda is also going to develop a new version of its rotary engine to pair with the electric powertrain. The automaker shared some details of the 2 new hybrid concept vehicles using a new revolutionary rotary EV system, including a transversely mounted layout using one rotary engine paired with an electric drive unit. The other design uses dual rotary engines, which could be used for a high-performance hybrid sports car. They went on to say, given the rotary engine's compatibility with electrification and carbon-neutral fuels, Mazda will continue to develop the technology through a co-creation and competition to ensure it can contribute broadly to society, which, they've got to make sure that they're on the right foot and right standing with the buying public. So they're going to, say stuff with all those platitudes.
What do they list in there? What carbon neutral fuels?
Later on in this article, I think we get to talking about that. Let's take a look and see. Let's see. Let's go to the next. When they talked about Subaru, let's go ahead and we'll talk about Subaru, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the fuels. Subaru's next generation hybrid system adds a battery and electric drive motor to its symmetrical all-wheel drive system that's currently used on all of its vehicles, which they've had that platform around for years. Production of the redesigned transaxle for the new system are slated to begin later this year, which would be probably, sometime this fall or where we're at right now. Toyota and Subaru aim for their future engines to use alternative fuels more efficiently to help contribute to their more widespread use, according to Sato. And I think he is the CEO for Subaru. These include synthetic fuel, biofuel, and liquid hydrogen, which Toyota, I think, has kind of been leading the forefront on the use of hydrogen. As part of this initiative, Toyota will work with Mitsubishi, Kosan, Enos, and Mitsubishi Heavy Industries on projects for establishing a carbon-neutral fuel supply chain. Now, I don't know if you know who Idemitsu Kosan is and Enos.
I know Idemitsu, whatever that Idemitsu.
Mm-hmm.
They're petroleum, I believe.
Yes, sir. That's exactly what they are. They are a petroleum company, and so is Enos. I believe that the Mitsubishi Heavy Industries is going to be helping provide the electronics and the electrical side, and probably the drivetrain side of things. Achieving a carbon neutral society is a challenge that must be undertaken by all of Japan's industries and society as a whole. And that was Atsushi Osaki, president and CEO of Subaru. So, you ask what fuels. Well, there you go. They said biofuels, synthetic gas. Was that what it said? Yeah, synthetic fuel, biofuel, and liquid hydrogen.
You know,
So
Toyota's been working on liquid hydrogen for a while. They've been beat up by that a few times.
what do you mean?
They don't have hydrogen refueling stations yet. So it's kind of like gas, electric. They don't have the places to.
Right. There's no infrastructure. None.
Right.
I think I was reading about an article on Toyota doing that one time, and I think they have one place, and it's in California, and that's it. And the thing about hydrogen is, everybody talks about how explosive propane is. Well, I can't put a number to it, but I would say hydrogen is probably 10 times.
Yeah,
it's much more energetic.
Well, back in the 70s, Blossman Gas used to put those propane systems on vehicles for people. I mean, we had a customer that drove Toyota customer that drove a pickup from Mobile, Alabama to Pascagoula, Mississippi every day on propane. He had a big tank put in the back of it when he bought it. He went straight on over to Blossman's Gas. They set him up, put all the stuff on the engine, put him a big tank in the back, and he drove I don't know how many miles.
It burns cleaner, and I don't know what the fuel economy improvement would be on that, but
it wasn't a big improvement. It was basically the same as gasoline.
But the cost of the fuel back then,
yeah,
propane now, I don't think it would be of any benefit
other than emissions. That lower emissions,
right?
But
yeah, it's much cleaner fuel.
Price wise, it wouldn't be that big of savings nowadays.
No,
but he that's why he did it, because he drove so many miles every day.
Well, let's see, it's 40 or 50 miles in one way, wasn't it?
Well, from Mobile to Pascagoula, it's probably probably about 60 miles, something like that.
Yeah, like I said, it was probably cheaper, much cheaper than gasoline back then.
One way now, that's 120 miles a day.
Right. All right, well, let's take a look at our next slide and see what we've got. All right. We are moving on into Ford's foray into the EV, and this also came from the Automotive Dive. And Ford execs on EV strategy, 3 lessons learned on pricing, models, and profit. The automaker expects each one of its electric vehicles to be profitable within 12 months of launch, and will do everything to make it a reality. They made some pretty costly mistakes in when they rolling this stuff out. Says Ford Motor Companies continue to adapt its electric vehicle strategy with lessons learned from a tough first quarter. The automaker is delaying EV launches and will instead expand its hybrid offerings, as Model E, its electric vehicle segment, lost $1.3 billion during the first quarter. And I'm assuming that's first quarter of 2024. I do know that they were having a tough time moving anything that was pure electric. The trucks couldn't hardly give them away. During the company's earnings call last week, Ford's CFO John Lawler said that the EV craze began. It seemed like demand would long outlast supply, but that was with early adopters, and they were willing to pay a higher price. What we're finding with being in the marketplace is that EV prices are normalizing, and our early majority customers are not willing to pay a premium. One of the other reasons they're not willing to pay the premium for going electric is they don't have the range.
Yeah. Well, there was also we're getting $7,500 boost from the government to buy one of them things.
And that went away.
And nobody's going to buy them. Of course, there's been so much bad press against them since they came out. People actually getting to use them. It's like Hertz was going all in, buying them for their rental fleet, and they're selling all of them now.
Yeah, they threw the brakes. They stopped receiving any new ones, didn't they? They canceled their order for any new ones. And now they're dumping their fleet of the ones that they already have.
Yeah.
Well,
the customer get out there and couldn't find a place to charge it back up so they could get back home or finish the trip or yada yada yada.
Right.
We don't want that crap.
Well, and it's like I've long said, EVs make sense in a big city. Your densely populated city, you're going to be sitting in idling traffic. You can have charging stations more readily available to you than heading out across Texas, heading out across the Great Southwest like we did a few years ago. There's just vast nothingness out there.
Mm-hmm. Miles and miles of Texas.
Yeah, and miles of wind farms. All right. The Ford assumed EV prices would come down 20%, and it was wrong. Ford entered the year anticipating the Model E prices would drop about 20% in Q1, but the discounts were much steeper than the company projected. We had to take our prices down another 17% just to remain competitive. We've seen prices coming down quite dramatically, and that's why we haven't been able to keep up from a cost reduction standpoint. Since they cut $5,000 off the cost of its Mach-E model, but revenue continues to drop faster than the company can reduce its cost. And they're going to be working to drive every dollar out of cost of the business in the near term. So Ford apparently took it in the rear end pretty bad on this foray into the electric vehicle market.
Which one is the Lightning, the pickup truck?
The Lightning is the pickup truck. Yes.
Yeah. When they had those, people were, for a while, everybody wanted one until everybody got one that wanted one and found out, no, I don't want this piece of crap.
Right. What was it? We've talked about it earlier. Hoovie's Garage. I think he tried it out and he went to tow. I think it was a Model A, or he was towing something. And he started out his trip on a full charge, and the battery he had a range of, 250 miles. And I could be wrong about these numbers, just drawing off memory. And he got about halfway into his trip, and it was exponentially dropping his charge and range because he was towing. Matter of fact, my understanding, and if I remember correctly, he wasn't even able to finish the trip towing, had to stop for a boost charge, and then turned around and went back home because he wasn't going to be able to make his destination of where he was trying to tow the vehicle. So, like I said, they're cool and all, and I think they do have a place in the industry. I just don't think it is going to replace the gasoline engine at this point.
No, it'll be
go ahead.
I'd say it'll be a while before they're ready.
Yeah. Now, we saw this while you were here. I think it happened right when we were. Yeah, it happened while you were here at Christmas, the day you got here. Because this article was on the 23rd of December of this year. Honda, Nissan, and Mitsubishi have confirmed they're in talks over a possible three-way merger as the Japanese companies struggle with falling sales and competition from the Chinese brands. companies confirmed on Monday that Honda and Nissan had agreed to start conversations toward a business integration through the establishment of a joint holding company, and that Mitsubishi would also decide on joining by the end of January. The merger would combine Japan's second and third largest automakers and add the smaller Mitsubishi in a defensive effort to join forces as the automotive industry goes through its biggest ever period of upheaval. It would create the world's third largest automaker in terms of annual sales, behind only Japanese rival and yours and my favorite, Toyota, and of course, Germany's Volkswagen. While Toyota has remained relatively financially resilient because of its early lead in the hybrid vehicles, Japan's other car makers are struggling to come up with the money to invest in the switch away from polluting petrol and diesel to cleaner electric vehicles. It's that subjective and can be argued that maybe electric is not as clean as they want to make it out.
Oh, it's not. If you follow the whole chain from the ground where they get the stuff to build the batteries, if you follow that whole chain to where the battery's made, it's worse pollution than the gasoline.
Correct. And I've seen some estimates that said that you would have to drive that electric vehicle probably to 100,000 miles before you begin to break even with the pollutants.
Yeah, that's just one of these. Look over here, but don't look over here.
Yeah, bait and switch. Yep. At the same time, Chinese manufacturers such as BYD and SAIC, not sure about those because I'm not buying Chinese, have aggressively targeted electric cars as a way of grabbing a much bigger share of the global car market. China's Foxconn, which makes iPhones under a contract with America's Apple, has reportedly stated early discussions about an approach for either Honda or Nissan, prompting accelerated merger talks. So, Honda's probably in a better standing and a better position than the Nissan people are. My feeling is the reason that Toyota has remained in such good standing is, when did they start the Prius?
04.
Was it 2004 is what I thought, in the early 2000s.
Yeah, it was 04.
And
pretty sure it was 04.
I need to go back and look at the history of it so I can see what they did as far as testing and development, because it had to have started probably in the 90s when they started testing and developing that Prius. But that is why Toyota has such a good standing. They've been doing it for a long time and doing it well.
Yep.
Says Nissan has been in crisis mode for several years amid falling profits and turmoil after the arrest of its former chief executive, Carlos Ghosn, in 2018. I thought this was kind of funny. People may have heard of this before, but if they hadn't, it's pretty funny. That this multi-million-dollar man, he's probably maybe a billionaire, who knows how much he's worth, but fled Japanese house arrest a year later, smuggled out of the country in a musical instrument box with the help of former special forces operatives. So he, as far as I know, has never faced charges of misappropriations of funds when he was in charge of Nissan, and I think he had Renault and all that.
Well, he probably put enough money in secret bank accounts that he's wherever he is now, he'll stay there.
Oh yeah. The thing is, he probably is he's in some non-extradition country, and he knows he's got to stay there. If he ever travels, they're going to get him. So he's got enough money; he doesn't care.
Right.
I think he's about your age now, so he's probably where he's going to ride out his retirement. All right, Grumps, that was our last slide and talking about the mergers and what's going on in the automotive industry as of current. But you and I frequently talk about engine oil maintenance schedules.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I have talked about and is what has fundamentally changed as far as the internal combustion engine. Yes, they've made improvements. You have the variable valve timing, and you have direct injection. You have several other features, but the engines are still made out of steel. They're still burning fuel. I want to know why the manufacturers are suggesting that you can go 10, 15, 20,000 miles on an oil change. What was it? Have you got your book there where you can talk about your 2008 Nissan Pathfinder?
I just looked to see what the recommended maintenance was in 2008. I got that 98 Camry. I didn't look it up because I thought you had something.
I do. I have it right here in my hand.
But anyway, Nissan, they had, what in the world did they do with it?
Yeah, you were telling me
they had premium in their book. They have what they call premium maintenance recommendations, and it's every 3,750 miles or 3 months. They recommend that if you want to keep your longevity of your vehicle. If you want to keep it in tip-top shape, every 3,750 miles you change your oil, or 3 months, whichever comes first.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got a little bit Schedule 1 maintenance. That was premium maintenance. The next is a Schedule 1 maintenance, and it's at 7,500 miles.
I thought you had one that was 5,000.
No, 7,500.
It was 7,500? Okay.
Yeah. And then they got a Schedule 2, and it's a little bit different, but it's 7,500 miles or 6 months. So just depending on how well you want to take care of your vehicle, how much driving you had to do. If you drive it, to work every day, stop and go traffic, to get the best maintenance out of it, you'd probably want to do it at 3,750 miles, or that's what Nissan said.
Right.
So if you drive it and get basically, what if you drive it short distances all the time, you don't ever get the oil warm enough to boil off the gases and boil off the water and all that kind of stuff. But if you drive it a little bit further every day, get the engine good and warm, then it's less damaging to the engine. And that's the reason I say you can go out a little bit further with the oil, because it's not as contaminated, because you burn it off.
Well, with us both having been in the fleet industry, both working on delivery trucks, we saw that. We had, when those trucks would go out, I know you had them too, 300, 350 miles a day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
I had when our oil change intervals on some of our Chevrolet vans were set at 5,000 miles, we had them on the lift every 2.5 weeks,
mm-hmm.
changing the oil. Well, after you retired, I was still there, still doing my thing. They bumped and moved the oil change interval out to 7,500 miles. and we still did not see any oil related failures with those engines. So that is the caveat to changing the oil and being able to do the 10,000 mile oil changes. I've often said, I think you can do the 10,000 mile oil changes and not have a detrimental effect on your engine, but you have to be using it at such a level that you're changing the oil. You're going to be changing the oil every 3 weeks or a month at the most.
Yeah.
The average American is not going to be at that level.
No. 10,000 miles. That if they did it strictly on the mileage and not the time. Mileage on some of them, I wouldn't change. After being retired, I wouldn't change the oil, but every 4 years. You know?
Right. Right. And, they also say not to go past, even though you may not have run the mileage that you need, not to run past a year. You should still
Right.
change your oil every year.
Right. I said if I was just going by the 10,000 miles.
Oh, yeah.
If I didn't know any better, I'd look in there and it says, well, you can go 10,000 miles, and disregard the or 1 year.
Right. And there are consumers out there that do that.
Yeah. They're retired and they don't want to change it, spend the money on the oil change.
Tell me about it.
So,
I've got that new Lexus and I wanted to change it around 1,000 miles. Well, I'm right over 1,500 and I'm fixing to change it. Well, guess what? I bought a filter and 6 quarts of oil. You know how much it was?
at the Toyota dealer?
No, I got it at O'Reilly's.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Guess how much it was?
The oil is probably $15 a quart. And
Wasn't quite that high, but
I only based that on, I bought some transmission fluid for that Nissan from O'Reilly's, and it was $15 a quart. And I figured it's in that range.
it's a little less than that. But I spent for 6 quarts of oil and a filter $70.
Mm-hmm.
Just going in there and buying it off shelf and taking it home, which that's going to be an upcoming video. I'm going to do a video on changing the oil in the 2024 Lexus. And we'll talk more about that later. But you had talked about your 98 Camry. Well, I have a book. If you'll focus on that.
Not yet.
I'll just tell you about it. It's a 96 Camry. Same engine, 5 SFE. And in 96, they recommended 7,500 or 5,000. Their 7,500 came with, if you operate your non-turbocharged Toyota under light, non-commercial duty for distances of 5 miles. Let me start that over. 7,500 mile oil change intervals if you primarily operate your non-turbocharged Toyota under light, non-commercial duty for distances greater than 5 miles in temperature climates above freezing but below 90 degrees. And they also had one if you choose the 5,000 mile, if you're using the vehicle for heavier duty driving and you drive distances less than 5 miles, or you're in climates that are above or below freezing or above 90 degrees, it's 5,000 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And with today's oils, I could almost get on board with changing my oil at 7,500 miles. Almost.
Toyotas in the 70s.
Yeah, I was hoping you would talk about this.
That it was when people bought a new one, they were told they had to bring it back, get the oil changed at 1,000 miles,
Mm-hmm.
and then it was 3,000 miles thereafter. But the first oil change from Toyota was bring it back with 1,000 miles and get the first oil change.
Did they do those as complimentary, or were they?
No, they wasn't
just part of the
complimentary.
warranty.
They're just part of the warranty. Tell people that you want to keep your warranty up, bring it in, get the oil changed, 1,000 miles, and then 3,000 miles thereafter. And if you did that, that's what made Toyota the car that it is today. Having the reliability. They went through some hiccups, but they took care. Back then, they took care of them. Like they had to, in the 70s when the gas changed from to unleaded, and they went to unleaded, but they didn't change the valve seats in the head because the valve seats weren't hard enough to burn unleaded because the lead cushioned the valves, kept them from burning.
Yeah.
When they started acting up, it didn't matter. If the car was 5 years old, they put a head on it. Brand new, redesigned head with that problem corrected. No charge to the customer.
Yeah, Toyota just paid for it.
Yeah, just brought it in, had a burnt valve. It never had a valve job. Head get put off, you get put a new head on. Put on, I don't know how many 18 RC heads. It was just on the 8R and 18R that they burnt the valves in them because of the unleaded gas coming into in place. Just wasn't hard. Valve seats weren't hard enough. So
and was it 75? I think they brought in the 20R.
And
I think, to be honest, that and the 2TC and 3TC engine is what made Toyota what they are.
Yeah, for sure. The 3TC was one of the bulletproof engines, and the 2TC.
Yep.
And then they had that little bitty slanted engine, the KC, 2KC or 3KC, I can't remember, but it was like the old Dodges over. It was at an angle.
I remember them. Oil filter mounted up on the side, pour oil everywhere when you go to change it.
Mm-hmm. But they took care of stuff back then, no questions. When they were trying to get their foothold.
Right.
And I've seen replace doors, fenders, anything got rust on it. If it rusted through, they just fixed it. No questions asked. But back then, if you took a door, like for instance, the radiator support, the bar that goes across the top of the radiator holding the two pieces of the car together, goes from fender to fender.
Yeah.
You pull that piece off, and underneath it was painted the same color as the body of the car. It's completely painted. And then they went to only priming any pieces where, like the door bolted on underneath the door hinge, it was primed, where it used to be completely painted. And then they got to where they didn't even prime it anymore, and that's when it had some rust problems. But they fixed it and went back the other way.
Yeah. So, we have said before, Toyota has made some mistakes, but they correct them.
They owned up to them.
Well, we talked about oil change schedules. So I broke out the book on the Lexus, the service manual, so to speak. No, it's the owner's service scheduled maintenance.
Yeah.
And they talk in the book, it says determining your maintenance interval, months or mileage. Lexus recommends obtaining scheduled maintenance for your vehicle every 6 months or 5,000 miles, whichever occurs first. And they go on to talk about and tell you what they're going to do at the first 5,000 miles. And oil change is not listed. In addition to standard maintenance items, vehicles that are driven under special operating conditions require further maintenance and service. These special operating conditions, which would put added demands on the vehicle, include driving on dirt roads, repeated trips of less than 5 miles at temperatures below 32, extensive idling and or low-speed driving for long distances, such as police, taxi, or door-to-door delivery use. Towing, not all vehicles are designed for towing, yada, yada, yada. If you drive primarily under any of the conditions noted, you should replace the engine oil and filter every 6 months or 5,000 miles, even when the oil maintenance reminder does not appear. So they throw that caveat in there for you to change your oil. But like I said, most people aren't going to read that fine print.
No, it's a excuse me.
Toyota got you all choked up.
Yeah. Well, see, even this 08 Nissan has a similar thing, determining the proper maintenance interval, and it's got the premium service, the Schedule 1, and the Schedule 2. And it goes a similar way, where you determine, are you driving it, we talked about getting it good and hot, certain temperatures. But anyway.
Yeah. It needs, that's why I even kind of disagree with their thought on door-to-door or taxi driving at slow speeds. As long as the engine gets the operating temperature and stays there, it's going to burn that stuff off.
Right. But I think it's kind of funny that basically this is an 08 model Nissan I got, and it's got similar wording as far as the maintenance schedule. You just got to read it, and most people ain't gonna read it. They're gonna take it to the dealer till it runs out of warranty, and then that's the end of that.
Right. And the oil change interval light on the 21 Highlander we had and this new Lexus that we have now is not going to pop on until 10,000 miles.
Right.
It's going to, the maintenance interval it tells you now is to carry it back to the dealer because it wants you to have an inspection done. But they're not going to do anything. They're going to top off your washer fluid and check all your other fluid levels, inspect your brakes and do all that stuff. And they're going to pat you on the behind and say, we'll see you in another 5,000 miles and then we'll change your oil. So if you want to get your oil changed, you're going to have to pay for it.
Well, that car you got, when I took it in to get anybody to look at it, they wouldn't. I'd have a hard time letting them do anything to drive it into the building. It's as peppy as that car is. I would surely wouldn't want to go out on the road with it.
No, I don't need them test driving my car.
Mm-mm.
Well, the other side of this coin is it's not just the automobile manufacturers. It's also your oil companies. They've gotten on board, and in their in an effort for energy conservation and reduced carbon footprint. They have developed the oils to well, how am I want to say this? To try to mitigate the extended change intervals. Okay. There's no substitute for changing your oil.
Nope.
Um,
That's right. They give you all those things right there. That tells me that they know you need to change the oil. You know, they give
right.
you all the buts, if, ands, or buts. If you do this, you got to change the oil. If you do that, you can maybe get by for a little while.
The Toyota engineer, wasn't that guy's video, the Auto Press?
Automotive press.
Automotive Press.
Yeah.
Where he is a retired Toyota engineer and discusses this at length.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what he said was, if you're going to keep a car for 200,000 plus miles, or for the, 20 years, you've got to do the oil changes at 3,000 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, if you're going to, I think, and I could be wrong about these numbers, but I'm pretty sure I'm pretty close. If you're going to keep a car for 10 years, do the 5,000. And if you're every 3.5, 4 years, you're going to go in and trade in and get a new vehicle, follow the manufacturer's recommendation of 10,000 miles.
Right. Yeah, I heard him say that.
So. Because the longevity is not going to, you're not going to damage the engine in 3.5, 4 years. And it's probably not going to show up for over, 150,000 miles.
As long as you don't develop a leak and it all leak out.
Exactly. Because they talk about that you, in your maintenance guide, I'm sure I know I read it somewhere, that you're supposed to be opening the hood, checking an oil, making sure that it's not using oil, making sure it's not leaking. And that's where they get you. And they want to keep all those inspections up. Because you still, even though you're going to go those extended miles, you still have to open the hood and look around occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
What was it you were saying? You were talking about transmission fluid. We were talking about CVT fluid. And I read it in this Lexus guide on this new IS350. And I personally am kind of ashamed of Toyota for what they did. And I wouldn't have believed it had I not read it with my own two eyes. Transmission service interval on that Lexus is never. It says it is a sealed for life unit and requires no maintenance.
Okay.
Yeah. The Highlander recommended service every 60,000 miles. And that seems appropriate with today's synthetic transmission fluids. That seems, if you're not towing and you're just using it as a passenger vehicle, that seems appropriate.
Well, do you have a place to let the fluid out and add fluid back?
Oh, well, of course you do.
On yours?
I haven't crawled up under it. That's coming in the next, day or so. I'm going to be getting under it to do the oil change, and I will be looking at that. I will be looking to see. It has to.
I know they had it on 2021 or 2022 because I saw a guy changing it on YouTube. That model, same model you got.
Right.
It was 21 or it was 2021 or 2022.
Well, if the transmission developed a leak, you have to be able to bring the level back up to where it's supposed to be. Yeah. They had to put fluid in it at the factory. They didn't put the drain plug or fill plug in and weld it shut. It's not sealed as like they want you to make out. I don't know how they're getting around that and why they're saying that. I guess they want to sell more transmissions.
Yeah.
Or more cars, period.
More cars. They run you up front, get you in another one. Put a used transmission in that one and go out on a lot.
Well, all I can say is this one will be changed. I don't know exactly what interval I'm going to do it at. I may do it at 30,000 because, this is a fun car, and I have had a habit of maybe driving a little harder than I would have otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Be easy to do.
It's real easy to do. Well, Gramps, I think we're fixing to wrap this up for the day. We've been going right at 52 minutes. We're coming up on 52 minutes. I think it's I hope some people
we about beat this dead dinosaur all we can.
Yeah. So what is
it? Terrell says dinosaur juice,
dinosaur syrup.
Syrup.
Yeah, we beat this dinosaur syrup to death. Here's the facts. In conclusion to talking about the engine oil, and just change it.
Yeah.
Change it, and change it often. And like the gentleman over at the what we say was Auto Press, was it Automotive Press?
Yeah.
If you're going to be replacing your vehicle every 3 to 4 years anyway, change it every 10,000. But if you want the Toyota to last like a Toyota is supposed to last, you might want to think about moving it back to 5,000 and possibly back to 4.
Mm-hmm.
Toyota will give you the miles that you really want to get, that you're in. Cars today are an investment. I know what I paid for this one, or I'm paying for this one. So taking care of it is kind of important.
Yeah. No doubt.
So, well, I appreciate you coming in here with me today, Gramps.
All right.
And
we're going to have to talk about that intro picture.
You talking about this one?